Thanks very much, Dan, especially for the company's acknowledgement. Distinguished guests from China and our own Brad, Sir Tim, in terms of his presence here. And I suppose that just identifies how young our dairy industry is when we've got a pioneer that forged the way for this group here today. So it's a great credit. Also, the apology from the Chief Executive. You were expecting to see our Chief Executive, Steve Carden. He hasn't been in the job for more than 12 months yet, and so, but he is already making significant difference to Landcorp, and there's more to come. It's an exciting future we've got in front of us, and look, keep him on your invitation list, Andy, because he would certainly love to be here on another occasion. So thank you. What I want to do is give you a bit of a brief about the farming portfolio and the current and future business. Look, I'm going to scan across the enterprises so that it's not just a deer discussion. The deer strategy, is it still right for us? I want to talk a wee bit about that. Why deer and their value. And a bit of our marketing. There's a bit of perception there, and I'd like to address that and a message at the end. So, the spread of Landcorp properties right throughout the country, starting from Kaitaia. And I want to just break down just into a regional bit, just as to what we are doing and where our current and future business is. Don't take all the detail of that, but the important thing is that in terms of numbers, we have got a balanced portfolio. There's 400,000 ewes there. We're up to now 53,000 dairy cows. The deer hinds, I think we'll slip off about 1,500 or 1,700 of those hinds, so we'll be around 57,000. And of course we've got still black cattle in the equation as well. Let's look at Northland, the 17 properties up in the far north there. We own only about 50% of those properties. They are destined to iwi. So they're sitting with the Crown predominantly at the moment. There's still a hub of ewes up there, and we've got cows as in terms of dairy and of beef cows. So the current business is that, yes, regardless of the land still being with the Crown, we have progressed the iwi partnerships. So, we're share milking or share farming 3,000 cows at Kaitaia. And now we're just putting in our first centre pivot, so there is a lot of appetite from iwi to invest, and that's happening right now. Early lambing, just keep this one at note because it helps a discussion I'm going to talk about in terms of production line farming. We're about to start lambing up there next month, so we pull about 24,000 lambs down here to front end our contracts in terms of supply to processing companies. We're going to extend that. We'll probably take that to about 40,000 lambs early on, so that we are pulling those in October, November, straight into our finishing units, hence the arrow into the King Country. Sheep don't particularly do well in the far north, but if you pluck those strawberries early, you can pull them in. And you'll see us with a continuation with iwi through our activities up there. In the central area between the two lines, and look, I've put the deer in red. That's not to say that they are making us no money at all. I just wanted to say this is a deer conference, and there'll be a lot of you saying, well, just how many hinds have you guys got? So there's 12,400 breeding hinds there. That 28,000 odd dairy cows, the Crayford properties is part of that program now. But we've still got a significant number of ewes and breeding cows in there. So the ongoing development there is on the Wairiki Pastoral Estate with our joint venture partners in Auckland. It's part of a 26,000 hectare operation, and you'll see us do about 23 dairy conversions in the next 5 years through there. We'll retain our deer operations there, Rangatite being a major part of that, the 8,500 hinds sitting on the Napier Taupo Road. And our other activity is into finishing in the King Country. Into to East Coast Wairarapa. That's a major hub in the North Island for our breeding of lambs in there. You'll see a continuation of that. We've got one deer unit on the East Coast. That's the one that's probably at threat at this stage. We probably won't. It's on the deer are on a property that we don't own, but we'll be talking with the potential partners and saying, do we need to continue here? There is a capex requirement there. So that's one of the negatives. The big green line is, in terms of the production line, there's about 40 odd thousand lambs that come out of the East Coast into the Manawatu for finishing. Another part of that finishing story. West Coast, pretty simple. It's either dairy cow or deer. It's going to be pretty much a status quo situation. I don't think we've got a mixed stage ewe over there now. Doesn't suit, a 3 metre rainfall. That's 24% of our deer operation. So it's self-contained, and the consolidation of there, that was a huge program we put in there in the 2000s in terms of consolidating, the Pākehī Swamp into Humpton Hollow and flipped country. And back over into Canterbury, we'll progress to a 5,000, 6,000 cow operation in the Canterbury Plains. We've got 2 or 3 conversions in the next 18 months that will happen there. Yep, we've lost a bit of deer finishing. So whilst we had a strategy of improving the land on the West Coast, we've been able to be more self-contained on the West Coast. We've got that challenge of TB coming over into Canterbury, so we've drawn a line on the pass and said, right, let's hold those on the coast, and we've wrapped up the deer netting and we're putting it into dairy. So of the significant changes in where we're going with deer, you've just seen them. Okay, so I'm not going to roll out any other plan. A 57,000 hind operation is about where we are. Lower, below the Waitaki River, that's all of our breeding ewes in the South Island sitting down there, and a significant 54% of our breeding hinds. And you'll see that pretty much as a status quo. Deer will be self-contained, lamb finishing. We've got to look at irrigation there, because whilst we had irrigation on the Canterbury Plains, we used to pull about 22,000 lambs out of Southland into Canterbury for finishing. So we need to, make sure that we have got that security sitting in Southland, where we don't really want to put dairy cows. We've got to look at it, the whole environment footprint over the top of New Zealand from a Landcorp perspective is sitting there so that we know what are we going to be doing in 10 or 20 years' time. So, and we're right up against the World Heritage National Park, and we keep telling ourselves, and it should be a challenge of this group as well, we should be able to farm alongside a World Heritage National Park with all stakeholders being happy. That's our challenge. That's a challenge of science, and that's a road we should be on. Current and new growth strategy. So look, you might just have to hang up your deer thoughts at the moment. I just want to take you around where Landcorp is going to be investing its money. This is the Wairaki estate, the 26,000 hectares, and with our Auckland-based partners, we now are underway again with the emissions trading scheme. They sorted their own emissions trading scheme out. They went and bought enough carbon to release about 9,000 or 10,000 hectares. So in the last 18 months we've been underway. It's just a process of getting things into dairy as quick as we can. We've got a 45-year lease on this country. We use our investors' money wisely to get it into to grass, and then as quick as we can, we need to start pulling milk solids off this country. Out of trees, we've completed in the last 15 months 3,200 odd hectares. You'll see a vast change when you go from Taupo to Rotorua in terms of what we're tipping over. We didn't own the trees. I'd like to make that point. Landcorp gets a bit of stick in terms of saying, Landcorp, you've just dropped all these trees. We didn't, our partners did. But we've got some great partners there, and they want to do some wise things with the environment. So this is a changing scene, and when you see it in grass, we've spent at that point, it's got a few windrows in it, at that point we've spent our investors, our joint venture partners' money, but anything that goes on top to change it to a dairy operation is Landcorp investment. Okay, so this is where we're putting the infrastructure on the top that turns it into a dairy farm. And that's a shot, it's probably 5 years old now, but on the right-hand side is, over the last 100 years, that's how we farmed. We farmed right up against natural resources. On the left-hand side, that's the rough, scrubby stuff. Has all been planted back into natives, and that's the vision that we need to have when we're pushing the footprint in terms of farming. So that's what it looks like. And the other major component is Pangjing, and a significant company from China, significant net worth, that invested in the Crayford properties. So the yellow and the blue ones are the share milked ones, and we're progressing that over, we've just completed our first year in actual fact as the share milker. So for all the reasons we got out of share milk properties and bought the cows, we've used the same principles in doing that with other people's money. So that's the significance of this graph, and hence with that heavy development into dairy, you see that we've got a particular spike. And you only have to look at where we are sitting now in terms of the purple, being in 2018 and just beyond. That's where our dairy exposure will be. And you might think, well, dairy's disappearing, but no, it's not. It's just got a smaller slice of a lot bigger pie. So you'll see that red line, 2 or 3 from the bottom, but it has got some lift in there, and we're confident we'll get a better lift than that. We need to be so much more confident about where dairy is going. It's a young industry, and I look at this audience here and see the brains trust of the New Zealand dairy industry, and there's a heap of talent here. And we, from a Landcorp perspective, we want to be the best, of what you are, and we've got a bit of work to do, and we've made a few mistakes on the way, but we still need to be in this environment, and there's progress in here. So when we get into looking at the volatility in earnings. Yep, we can be sitting on the red line where we say, okay, given about where the market will take us in product price, will we end up in that 60 odd mil, 70 odd mil EBIT in terms of earnings before interest and tax, what we make at the farm gate. But if we spike that on the green line and we say, yep, milk could get to $9, and we say land price, even at $6. Boy, does that do something to your EBIT. But on the flip side too, you can come down to a milk price of $6.50, that can happen, and a land price at $4.50, and you're sitting down there, just sitting over, 20 mil. And by the time we have actually spent the money that we are going to do, and that's about 192 million at Taupo alone with dairy conversion, it makes us a wee bit nervous, and because that's going to gravitate into a 14 mil interest bill. So, we need to be doing all the smart things to make sure we've still got money to pay real wages, because we haven't just got one big family. We like to think we're a family, but you've got to pay real wages. So, that's very much a focus of ours. So, 1.7 million stock units. These numbers always, keep me awake at night, because here we've got about 500,000 stock units in dairy. Now this is current, this is today, sitting on 21,000 hectares, and that'll do about 39 million EBIT this year. Now when you get 1.2 of your rest of your stock units, they're sitting on 170,000 stock hectares, and we might get about 18 million, 19 million as an EBIT at the 30th of June. So you've got a hell of a lot of resource that you're poking resources into, but you have got that mismatch in terms of the resources you need. So that's one that we've got to be focused on. If Steve Carden was here, he would be saying he wants to punt the red meat industry. Okay, he wants to make sure that we've got that volatility sorted out. He wants to really put some collaboration and to get on the value chain to make sure that the red meat industry is strong in New Zealand. And if through his direction, materialising at Landcorp, that's what he'll achieve. And I back him. Right, what did that 2002 Deer strategy look like? In 2002, our board of directors said we need an independent to have a look as to where Landcorp's going. We were sitting on about 95% lamb and beef, and in 2 years of our first 14 years, the biggest farmer in New Zealand made a loss. Okay, we had to go to the bank to pay the last of the wages. So then they said, righto, let's have an independent. Nimmo Bell came along, gave us a 10-year horizon. It had dairy and venison in it. And I'm looking at Collier because Collier Isaacs was right amongst it those days. And when we got the 10-year plan, we concertinaed it into a 5-year plan, and away we went, Collier. The best move we made. And of course, the main direction of that was to get 50% of your revenue in milk solids and deer. And by year 6 and 7, we'd achieved that. So that's what deer meant to us. And if I open this title in terms of what's the value of deer to Landcorp, it's just that. It kept us out of the having the biggest farm in New Zealand saying it had a debt, and it didn't make a profit in X years. So that's important to us. So yes, the 19,000 hectares, 10 new farms, and since then we've done another 3,500 hectares. Takes us up to just under 30,000 hectares of deer fencing. And apart from the 348 hectares we just wrapped up on the Canterbury Plains, that's all we're going to wrap up. Reasons: diversity of product mix. I've already explained that. The revenue stream, we had something else in our kitty that provided us revenue. The scale and the critical mass is important in terms of having a bundle of deer that you can market, and it suited a lot of our farming environments. And we looked at that 2,000 feet and said, righto, it's about tussock country, and we look at a lot of the South Island. We looked at that 2,000 feet and said it's better having a red deer run around on that than chasing Romney sheep and an Angus cow around with a silage wagon. So that's how, if we look at the West Coast, the type of country that has gone into deer, and the fact that we're able to tip it up after $6,500 to get it to that point, so that we had that finishing capability, so that we could grow grass on grey wacky. And in the Taonea Basin, again, we're at elevation on the haycocks here, back on Stewart Farm in the central Taonea area. And so, and we didn't put them in particularly kind country, and so we have taken, a bit of productivity hit in some of those areas we've gone into, and we were making better gains in terms of 40% in our early days. Then we chucked scale into it and took herds up to 5,000, 5,500, 8,500 hinds, and yep, we didn't quite transition into those big numbers, so we had a dip, and then we had some death rates starting to come back. So we needed to do, a few things and learn from our previous mistakes. And we know we copped some of those conditions where, deer stand up to that pretty well. Our experience is that they don't handle a 70-year drought, but they can handle a fair bit of storm that throw at you if you look at our analysis. And it's not just a nice view, but sometimes it helps. So why is Landcorp staying into deer? We are confident long term. We believe it's got a great future, just for the same view as we took, back in 2002, we took a 30-year view. So if you're going to, rip the guts out of your wool shed, put in a deer shed, stand the fencing up, spend a couple of $1,000s a hectare, well, by the time you got your hind, then you needed to have a longer term view than getting to the end of where we're at now, year 12, and saying, holy hell, have we done the right thing? Of course we've done the right thing. And venison is a great protein, and there's a good thing I like to fall back onto. You farm the farm, and you don't farm the fashion. Farm the farm, don't chase the fashion. Because if the land's attributes are right, and you've still got the right animal and its attributes on that country, you've got a better future. Stay in deer, but refine the business. Yep, sure, we're doing a wee bit of work around the chiller season. The chiller season helps our lamb program. We kill 400,000 lambs, so whipping getting the chiller season out of our way to release land for the early lambs, that's a plus for us. The national workshops, they are really plus. We've still got to do those better. We are making improvements out of those. And I thank those guys that have, let Landcorp and their managers and its managers onto your farms. Tim Aitken was one, and Sam Zenos, and Koonans, I think, from the West Coast. Thank you guys. And to this group, we welcome you to our farms because we'll get judges. We'll get judges that will say, why the hell are you doing that? There is a better way. So we're open to that. And hence that benchmarking. So again, as Steve Carden would be saying, collaboration with your industry, get some scale about it. So he'd be endorsing, this same discussion. Don't put a ceiling on our industry. And it's, we've got some older properties, but they're only old. But in actual fact, they're young. There's no livestock business, is a mature unit. Not if you consider, or if you haven't yet chased all the genetic opportunities and totally exploited those. The management improvements, if you haven't adopted all those, and the science, there's still science out there and new to come, and tap the market. So if you haven't done any of those, your property, is still immature. It's immature as a business, and it's got scope. Milk solids or red meat. So look, if you're sitting there with just your deer industry and you're about to slit your throats because I've just told you about all the milk, money we're going to make out of milk solids this year, well, don't, because here's our experience. In the last 7 years, our livestock operation has averaged 20 million EBIT, and dairy has done 21 million. It's only been 3-4 years ago that our 33,000 cows at the time made us zero. Made zero. And but the red meat sector paid the bills and paid a dividend. And a shareholder every year wants a dividend. Overcome the challenges. Modification of the feral animal. In another couple of 100 years, after we've found these red deer, they'll be pretty bloody good. Okay, and we are so young as a red meat, in venison. But there's been so much gain made so far, but there's still more to go. Beef cattle and sheep have been, farmed for, centuries. And look how young our deer are. 100 days, this is a bit that we focus on with our workshops. 100 days post-weaning, a hind weans 50% body weight, a ewe will earn, or wean 64%. Let's chase the hell out of that figure. The deer business refinement, do we hang on to a few stags and grow out the velvet and sell a heavier carcass a wee bit later outside the chiller season? And if we're spiking over $100 for the velvet, is that a better business case? We're going to do the figures, but it won't be a huge swing, because already there's a big signal, and I want to get onto that very shortly, about production line management. 7 to 10 tonne of velvet. In our 27 years of Landcorp, we've never selected for velvet, and we haven't started. There's plenty of others that are doing it a lot better than we would, but venison is our game. We send 8,300 transfers between breeding and finishing farms. I'd love it if we didn't have to start up a truck, only one truck to get them onto the hook, because there's a bit of wastage, and you all know the risks about whipping weaners distance to get them off a breeding unit. So we've got some protocols around that. Our internal pricing, if our guys make, and look, we've got some great guys. For Landcorp, we're so honoured to have some really good guys. But there's some guys that make some mistakes. We all make mistakes, and so when we get specifications that are wrong to a breeding unit, they get half price. Okay, the breeder will get half price. And the public hangings there, within the closed shop of a Landcorp, we make a point about, production line farming, you get one chance. If you're picking strawberries, you don't give up your chance of doing it well. Production line farming, I suppose the best example was the Tesco lamb example, and I'm looking at Glenn Tyrrell down here because this has been with Silver Fern Farms. 3 years now, Glenn, and he's nodding, and we're committing for next year as well for the 170,000 lambs. This is, they are Lamb Supreme terminally sired. They've got to come under Landcorp's Farm Pride QA. The Tesco guys are all over our farms, along with Silver Fern Farms, and so we agree a price. It's a fixed price. We nail that about October, and some hedging involved as well. And we start in November, and we do 6,300 every week for the 26 weeks, and they come from all throughout our portfolio. Fixed price, that's what it is, and the fixed price, it's going to be under that spot at the beginning of Christmas, and you think, okay. But it's the same price. What does it do? If we need more lambs when we go to the marketplace, we know exactly that, last year we could pay for live weight, $2.24 a kilogram live weight, if we were to go and put it in a finishing unit and come out the other end with profit. Okay, so that's a real good signal. So we weren't burning a hole in the sale yards and competing with the industry just because we thought we might need lambs. So there's a great discipline in that. So the fixed price is where we're at. And of course, all we had to concentrate on there is to get 92% in spec in the box, right throughout that time. This is in addition to other lambs that we've also fixed price, and we got up to about 275,000 fixed price. So and I think we've closed on about 82% fixed price of our lambs. And if you thought we knew what we're doing, then you have a look at this map, and that's what transfers look like around the North Island. Okay, so I don't ask you to go and look at it, but there's a lot of effort that goes into ensuring that you can do, and at the peak of season we're doing 10,000 lambs a week, and we've got to know exactly where they are. But it does work for us, and it can happen. The marketing side of things is with the Chinese as well. We've had Fusan, I think, Capital. They were in last week. Rhys Griffiths came across, and so we're sharing the contacts we're making with DINS and saying, let's get the expertise to tell us about New Zealand. Well, I'm glad you laughed because it means it's true. Look, and I've copped this. I've been around long enough to say, God, you Landcorp bastards, you're getting our premium and we're not getting a stitch of it, And I've got to say how untrue that is. Earlier days, we were getting good market, or good premiums for volume. But if you look at what we're doing currently, 82% of the lambs, fixed price, 40% of cattle, 35% of venison. Right, that venison is all the backbone contracts, the same thing that you get, and given that there's a volume, premium there for the big numbers, that's what we get too. All right, so we're not banking a whole heap of money that you think you might be getting on your schedule. So I wanted just to level that perception, and in this room we all want to be good bastards because it's our industry. So our beef experience. I'm 3 minutes over. Shall I finish? Right. I won't have to talk about our beef experience because it's just reinforcing where we're at. But this is where the Tesco/Silver Fern Farm took us. One of our managers sitting on the shelf in London, and that's a good news story. We are supporters of Farm IQ. Our version of the farm management system went live this week. Collier's, main, keeps him awake. But we really are looking forward to the Farm IQ. We're on board with it. It suits our culture, and that's what we want to do. And I think I flogged that off you, Collier, or Silver Fern Farm, but that's a good one to be. So in a nutshell, I'm at this conference to hear, what the agility is in our deer industry, the new ideas and the things that we can progress with and make a difference. So it's. We're going to back this industry. We're still in it, and I look forward to some interaction over the next couple of days. Thank you, Chair.